I shipped a game on Steam when I was 16. I haven't opened the project in 3 years because I'm terrified of the code. But if I cannot fix it, I'm delisting it on Steam forever. Seriously. And I found stuff that not even AI could recreate. There's code in this project that I, the person who wrote it, cannot explain. Some of it might be the only thing holding the game together. Who knows? I mean, how bad could a settings menu be? Now, before I roast this, I want to give 16-year-old me some credit. The settings menu is actually full-featured. You've got multi-language support, controller button prompts, volume sliders, graphic settings, post-processing, full control binding, and a credit screen. For a solo dev kid shipping their first game, I think that's pretty okay. What I don't love is the 6 responsibilities crammed into one file. So how does it work? For example, when you drag the volume slider, it calls apply settings, and apply settings calls save settings. So every single tick of the slider writes your settings to disk. When you adjust the volume, the game is hammering a file the entire time you drag it. And it does not stop there. You'd think a full screen toggle would be clean too, right? Well, I really wanted those settings to persist because it does 2 writes every time you toggle full screen, and it made it to production. It works, but it's a little stupid. There's something even worse. The settings menu is a bit bad on its own, but all of the menus are connected in a way that makes things much, much worse. Every single UI button in this game is a global signal. If 2 buttons in the game make eye contact, they emit a global signal. And if you want to add any new menu, you have to come back to this file and register more signals. Honestly, this is one of the things I cannot spend time to completely redo, but I will band-aid fix the bugs since they are game-breaking. Could this be the kind of architecture where a simple misread deletes everyone's progress? But that's not too bad compared to the confusing wreck we're about to look at. Here's what this function needs to do. Flip a boolean. You collect gem number 2 on world 1 level 3 and set it to true. 1 dictionary lookup, maybe a couple lines of code. But here's what it does. It loops over every key in the dictionary, checks if the key matches the current world, then loops over every key inside that, checks if it matches the current level, and then sets the level. I mean, that defeats the point of using a dictionary. In reality, it works. And it only runs when you collect a gem, which is max 3 times per level. So it's not like it's causing performance issues, but this is the kind of code where if you showed it to someone in an interview, you would not get the job. But what if I told you there's an odd abuse of magic numbers? Instead of a mapping where level requests song by name, like an enum or dictionary, it's just integers. And there's a comment that literally says, look at line count for index. I padded the comment so the numbers would visually line up with the array positions. That was my version of documentation. But does it work? Yes, until you try to change it. Add 1 track to world 1, insert it in the middle, and everything after shifts. Every level in the world referenced the wrong number now, and you'd have no idea until you playtest every single level. A level should request track world 3 rain, not integer 9. Speaking of things that are mine, I am consistent with one thing: misspelling. Falling ice is spelled with 1 L, and coyote time is also misspelled all over the codebase. But at least it's consistently misspelled. Also, some more fun stuff like, how did I make certain ice spikes instantly fall? Well, of course, by setting the animation speed to 999. And then there's the inventory sorting where I created an array of zeros and build a weird sorting algorithm. Or player.can-dash, which is a function in some places and a boolean in others. And a comment that says spikes above an entire player physics block that handles sprinting, floor detection, ice, physics, and dashing. But this game is on Steam, people paid money for it, and I haven't touched the project in years, and every time I open it, I see how deep the problems go. The settings menu is too many systems in one file, the UI is using a global signal bus, which sometimes breaks, and there's code here I don't understand anymore. And the worst part is, I can feel how much 16-year-old me wanted this to be good. The coyote timing, the full control rebinding, multi-language support, it just needs some more fixes and improvements to be robust. So I'm going to fix the worst of it, the game-breaking bugs. I'm going to fix the music system, the settings menu behavior, the controller bugs, and the spaghetti code of a boss fight. If I can't get the game into a state that I'm okay with, I'm delisting it from Steam. So the music system's the cleanest place to start. We need to have audio track names and use dictionaries and enumerations. Instead of requesting number 9, the level requests music tracks running in the sun. And it is more lines of code, but the lines of code more say what they're actually doing. I changed the data structure, hit play, and it did not work. But the issue was a little more silly than I thought. I got a little discouraged until I realized that I copied the dictionary template and forgot to change the file paths. Oops. Every world was pointing to the same track. And then I found another problem. The old code was calling music updates inside process, which means it was running at least 60 times a second. 60 times a second, the game was checking, should I change the music? And the answer was usually no. The new version updates on actual events like level changes and boss fights. And this wasn't too bad, but the following issue was much more important to fix, and it was not too easy to discover. If the settings menu handled display settings like aspect ratios and resolution, changing it could permanently break the game because it auto-applies and saves everything. There's a reason Windows asks you if you're sure you want to apply the new display settings and auto-reverts if you don't confirm. I pulled the save call out of apply settings, and when I tested it, the volume slider snapped back to its previous position every time you dragged it. The code was so tangled that removing the save broke the apply. Pretty typical of a God file, and it sort of makes sense why I chose the settings menu to save every single time something changes. But those need to be separated. And while I was in the menu code, I found another game-breaking issue that was hard to untangle. The settings menu and the inventory menu are the only main UI elements in the entire game that hide themselves by setting the visibility to false. So, sometimes when playing a while, a menu that was off-screen would block the input from going through, making keyboard controls the only way. But we know the issue with controllers were sometimes the focus breaks, so the game would soft lock. In fact, that's the next issue I have to face. The shop's back button had no top neighbor. The items in the back button live in different container nodes, so Godot's automatic focus system couldn't figure it out. On a controller, you navigate to the items and you can never get back. Soft locked in the shop, no weapons for you. This is where the whack-a-bug with the UI seemed to be over, but I was pondering the next architectural disaster. In fact, I almost did not get to this point, but then I remembered the promise I made to myself. This is the code I genuinely did not fully understand, and it controls the most important sequence in the game. Here's how it works. You fight Korra, World's 3 boss, which has 2 phases. You kill her 2 snowman minions, and her invincibility drops so you can defeat her. After that, the level end teleporter appears. But when you step on it, it fakes you out, and you don't actually end the level. It disappears, and Fernand, the World 1 boss, comes back. But now, he has an ice gun, way more health, and fast attacks. It's the same script, same character, kind of, with an is-end version flag halfway through the code, in a completely different part of the game. And the sequence that makes all of this happen? 5 different scripts listening all to the same global signals, yielding independently, all racing to mutate the same global state. The boss emits story boss killed signal, and 3 separate scripts hear it, and one pauses the game tree. They all assume others will act in a specific order, but Godot might not guarantee the signal delivery order. Like, what happens if the fade starts before the camera switches? Do you get a black screen with the wrong camera? So after some thought, I was like, we should just do an orchestrator script. Instead of all 5 scripts listening to the same signal and racing to respond, one script calls each step, in sequence. Wait for dialogue, pause the tree, play the fade, switch the camera, show the teleporter, fade back in. Every other script just exposes a function that does its own job. So did it work? Into a new episode of Whack-a-Bug. The game crashed immediately. I tried to call a signal that didn't exist in the new architecture because I removed it. So I fixed it, I tested again, crash. I had a function named underscore, so I just had to fix that real quick, and now Fernand doesn't spawn. The game soft locked, and the teleporter just sat there. Eventually I fixed that because one of the signals never emitted in the first place. But then now when you kill Fernand, the game crashes. And the game crashes on the frame he dies, because his physics processing was still running the same exact tick that he got freed. So I put one line, if not instance is valid, position 2D, return, and that fixed it. And then the camera shook so violently during the boss cutscene it looked like an earthquake. I tuned the trauma down in the screen shake values. Then Fernand flew so fast that he launched himself into the wall. Also, you could get hit and killed by the snowballs during the cutscene transition, which felt pretty unfair. And if you walked away from the teleporter after activating it, the game just wouldn't transition until it was back on screen. I fixed the level end sequence by removing the visibility enabler 2D node when the boss fight was triggered, and I disabled the cannons and snowballs during the transition. After all of that, it worked. What a headache. The new system is one orchestrator calling functions in order. I'll admit the code is still a little bit tangled, but it is much, much better. Oh, remember the O(n squared disaster gem collection function? The one that loops over every key in the dictionary to find the one that it already knows? I simply wrote it the way that it was supposed to be from start. Because the gem display in the HUD would only display when the game was saved, it was like a weird lag. The gem wouldn't show up until after saving the game. So I made a new system where when you collect a gem, it's in a sort of opaque value. And then once you save the game, it turns into the full color. Hopefully that makes it just a little more clear what's going on. So where are we at now? Well, the music system works. The settings menu doesn't hammer the disc anymore. The controllers don't soft lock anymore, as far as I know. And most of the boss fight logic runs in one new script, without hard-coded level checks. Also, the gem function is no longer a pain in the ass. I mean, but 16-year-old me was building something ambitious. He didn't understand separations of concern, spaghetti coded most of the game, and hammered writes to the disk. Even if some of the areas of code were very rough, I would still consider this a success. So what's the takeaway? I think a bad architecture doesn't prevent you from shipping, but it will cause persistent bugs and make it harder to scale and come back to the game. My game became a time capsule that I was scared to come back to. And the longer I waited, the more of a stranger I was for my own code. For years I avoided this, not really because I was lazy. I was just afraid of what I was going to find. So here's the deal. Everplast stays on Steam. I will push the update as soon as I can. I might have to untangle some things because the Steamworks account wasn't in my name because I was underage, but it'll get done. Look, there's still like 1,000 decisions I would make differently today, but the game works and contains less bugs than before. Some of the worst issues are fixed now. So if you shipped something years ago and you're afraid to look at it, open it. See what you can do. And subscribe to this channel for more because we just broke 500 subscribers in a month. Thank you.